fantastic. It's really nice to meet you all, guys. I know some of you who joined, so great to see you here again. But yeah, let's start. Today's webinar actually is very special because this time actually we don't have any operator of the co-working space in this webinar, which is different to our other webinars that we will have. Today we have focused on hosting our essentially providers. So all of the panelists that you can see here are coming from the systems that are integrated with Nexudus in different ways. So we have representation for the door access control systems and for the Wi-Fi management system and integration part. So I think the discussion will be really productive, and not only you will get to know their services, which is obviously quite interesting how they handle those things themselves, but also their insights. Obviously, they serve a quite wide customer base, and they help co-working spaces and flexible office spaces all over the world. So I think from your perspective, it will be as well very interesting to get to know what they have to say. So today we will focus essentially on access and security in your workspace. What is the priority? What you should do to make your building work well in case of those integrations, as well as, okay, so now concerning the situation, what can we do to actually adapt to the current situation, right? So all of this we will discuss today. So today with us, we have, let me just stop sharing the screen so you can see us. Today with us, we have, just a second. So we have Martin Benuska from Iron Wi-Fi. He's an account manager there. So probably if you're a customer of Nexus, you've heard about Iron Wi-Fi at least once from us. We have also Brad Conner, Jr., CEO from Isofy, and Isofy is also integrated with Nexudus. They are providing all sorts of network infrastructure services, and he will be able to tell you more about it. We have also door access control systems providers from other integrations with Nexudus. One of them is Christian Smith from Salto, a global account manager at Salto Systems, as well as Jonathan Polon, who is a senior director of business development at Brivo. I'm sure you're very curious how they understand the current environment, what are their advices regarding the building, regarding managing all of this, regarding the security. So we will dive in. What we will do on this webinar, just letting you know that we'll basically let them discuss things between each other. So I won't be interrupting too much in that sense. So I hope that the discussion will be really great. And make sure that you add also any questions that you have in the Q&A window on the bottom. So that we can actually cover your question. That's very important as well, because I'm sure you have different problems, different questions connected to that specific topic. And we have great experts today to actually answer those questions. So let's dive in. Cool. So I would like to start essentially from talking about the customer profile, because obviously we are talking about the co-working flexible vertical, and the customer is quite specific there. We are talking about the customer who comes in quite frequently, but quite irregularly as well. It can be also a person who is a part of the wider corporate team. So if you have a private offices, obviously that person can be just part of a team and coming to the space, to their own office. So I wonder, what are the needs of the customers in the sense of the security and access? And here I will give my voice to Christian and Jonathan, if you can start on drafting what is really the customer need when it's coming to the door access control system and all security connected to that.
Great. Shall I give it a start, or Jonathan? Okay. Now, hello, everybody. Thank you, first of all, Monica, for having us. So it's a pleasure being here on stage. Now, I would give it a start, and I think Jonathan can perfectly switch in, is I would say what if we talk about customers, so then we talk about the guests, the members, the operators itself. I mean, that's also a type of a customer profile, and we can see it more or less, I would call it as a tenant engagement and ecosystem validation. So, and if I then look through the tenant engagement and the ecosystem validation, then I would see always the supply side. So operators obviously want technology to increase efficiency, automation, so what you already mentioned, yeah, while addressing the limitations of the physical amenities. So amenities are becoming super important, and this is actually at the moment an inflection point, how I see it. So to think about tech-enabled services, and to give you maybe one example. So I mean, just out of the box. So buildings built even 5 years back were not built to provide a solution for the amount of parcels coming in every day. So gyms built inside in a property to maybe provide a space-driven amenity were built maybe not in the balance of the use and the cost. It's really cost intense. So these services, I mean, are something which are coming from the supply side, and then you have on the opposite the demand side, and the demand side can be the customers of the customers we don't know, or the guests basically. So there we have the technology use, and the usage itself is quite a standard. So everybody is using technology. So what we need to understand is what and how they want to use the technology. So we should focus how to prioritize tech over all in a meaningful and thoughtful way, that we can really start discussing even what elements are needed within an ecosystem to provide a holistic solution. And there's always and often even a belief that people are just using technology for the sake of technology. And that is something which, I mean, caught me, because current generations and those of tomorrow, they use technology on a daily basis. And now if we would come as an access control provider, or you as a Nexudus, where we, I mean, love to integrate even more functionality and logics, just providing an app to let customers chat would be a backward approach, right? So it's already perfectly embedded in thousands of apps you are using, I'm using. So we have to think of a bridge to look into the ecosystem, understand the customer well-being, and going from there. So, and that is maybe a starting point to hand over to Jonathan and his opinion. You are muted, I guess.
There we go. Yes. So thank you. Sorry about that, everyone. So good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here. Thank you, Christian, for the start and for your thoughts. I absolutely agree with everything Christian just said. It is part of an ecosystem. And as I have been privileged to learn more about the flexible workspace working community and the co-working community over the years, I've learned about some of the needs. So to add on more specifically to what Christian said, it's really from an access control perspective, in my view, you're really looking for, and again, obviously with COVID, so much is changing now, but flexibility, just flexibility in terms of the way things will be set up as people change the way that they approach the workspace. You know, I saw one statistic from JLL, I believe, that the prediction is that by 2030, a full 30% of workspace will be flexible in some capacity. I'm sure that's not lost on this group. So from an access control perspective, and from that perspective, we want to give the ability for operators to, you know, it's a buzzword, but to future-proof. You know, so Christian was talking about the ecosystem. We want a future-proof items and products that can connect with other systems, like, of course, Nexudus, who's hosting us here today. We want to give that flexibility to have people set up offices in ways that we may never have thought of before. I know that Monica touched on the corporate, you know, there may be members who are members for a shorter time or for a longer time, or you may need to have members who are inviting other members for a short time. You need to be able to do that in a very seamless way. and in a very easy way. I mean, clearly, I know Christian and I would agree on many things, but number one, certainly locks and keys is just not going to do what needs to be done anymore. You need a foundation that will allow you to understand how people are using your facility. Number one, who's using, what facility, as the data becomes more important, who's coming when, where are they coming, how long are they staying, how are they using it, the types of efficiencies that you need to understand. And then also the ability to, again, to be flexible and to future proof, to be able to integrate with other solutions like a Nexudus. So I would agree, but that's basically the introduction to the needs as I would see it.
Fantastic.
Agreed.
I mean, obviously from the door access control solution, I would say that this is one of the integrations that we really encourage people to actually pursue. The reason being is that you really giving keys to people is not anymore feasible. And still, I can see some operators, unfortunately, thinking that will be enough. Maybe it's enough for the first couple of months, but then when those keys being copied, they are not being given back. And with all the door access control solutions that we have, we can obviously control that better. And all the data as well that you get from this, it's really valuable. So you can see essentially who is when and in which specific space you secure your building, but I guess we will talk about this a bit later. Fantastic, thank you. Brad and Martin, from the perspective of the Wi-Fi, obviously, that's also quite a hot topic, because obviously you don't want people to get into your building with the door access control system, like it has to be shut and only people who are allowed can be there. But what can be done with the Wi-Fi connection? Because like we go to the cafe, we get a password and we connect, and no one feels that it's secure enough. You go to the airport, you have this page where you add your login details or whatever your information, you connect. How secure all of it is, and what are needs really the customers, that you can see what they are asking for, and how you can actually facilitate that.
Okay, thank you for the word. Yes, it's very similar to the physical access control or access security, because in the Wi-Fi world, like as you might remember, like initially some companies usually start with just open network when anyone can connect and they can basically do whatever they want on the network. Soon these companies realize that's not optimal and not secure at all, so they try looking for a solution. The next step is typically just share a pre-shared key that they give to their members, and that's the key that everyone else is using to connect to the network. That might again work for some time until they, some people lose their access, or their access should be revoked, and then the other people would have to change a key, which is not easy to manage and not efficient at all. So then basically the radius authentication kicks in, and which gives the identity-aware connection, which basically guarantees the operators and the business owners or the companies that only people who are allowed to have internet access or access to their network basically get this access, and only for that, under the terms that they're allowed to, and only for the period of time that they should have this access. So that's what I see. And plus, not just identity, but plus it gives them also like tool and visibility, basically who is online and what they did, and able to go back and track like any changes that have been done by these people that are online.
Brad, can you add on this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that really when we look at Wi-Fi and we look at network, we need to look at it as a physical space, exactly as we look at access control and we create offices and we have different sections that everyone's in the office. We want to do that same thing with network security. And so often we see just a flat structure where everyone's just on the same network. And that really, as Martin alluded to, it's got some security risks that we really don't want to have, especially in an environment where we're working together, but maybe we're not all accessing the same data. We might be accessing private data, secure data. Maybe we have compliance issues as members that we need to maintain. So it's really important, I think, that as we continue to progress and people start to understand network security, that the customers are really looking for that. But unfortunately, traditionally, network security and co-working don't go well together because there's a lot of flexibility there, and network security was really meant to be static and not changing. And that's really where we step in, is to provide that flexibility and allow the network to be very fluid without having the staff having to do all of that. but providing that network security and segregating the traffic.
Actually, that's from this perspective as well. Like, do you see some behaviors or some needs of the customers that they are asking for regarding the Wi-Fi as well? I mean, because I have seen on other webinars as well, people ask often like, how quick my internet should be for the needs of the corporate customer. I think we talk about the security as well here, but like, okay, but a part of the security, what are the also like requirements from the people that you hear that are talking about? So yeah, how fast the internet should be, and any other aspects that you can think about.
Yeah, I think for network speed, it really is. I think the reason you can't get a straight answer is it's very dependent on what type of traffic you have and what type of users you have. So I think what you need to do instead is have a solution that can give you that data and can help you have some insight to if your internet speed is fast enough. I will say, as a standard, we always want to look at when we're talking about internet speed. Most people are familiar with bandwidth, and so they hear 100 megs or a gigabit connection. And that's one piece of the equation, but just as important is the latency of that connection. That's really what determines how fast it takes for it to come back for a meeting like this. Latency is what's going to make the difference between my conversation being delayed and us talking over each other, not bandwidth. So really a fiber connection is going to give you that best latency. So we want to look at that. But for bandwidth, the best way to do that is to have a tool like ours that can help you actually see how much bandwidth is being used, and you guys can make better educated decisions on if that needs to be upgraded, and not just having to rely on customers telling you, oh, it feels slow, when in fact it might be their computer or how they're connected to the network, and not actually your network connection.
That's actually interesting. We will go over how you actually help with the services to our customers, because I think a lot of services that you do, many people may not be familiar with in general. So whether that's a door access control system, they just think, okay, that's just the member's card to open the door, and that's pretty much all, the entry door and so on. So we will go into this, and the same with the Wi-Fi connection. Like, why do you even need that? Essentially, this integration with the system, which is quite interesting. So
maybe just from an access point of view, I think that's also a super interesting one to discuss and to share. It's actually, I mean, customers in the past, they have mainly used on-premise enterprise systems, which had definitely from a log perspective, maybe a scalability direction, but not from the invest on-premise. So by shifting and offering also, and that's what we do, and as well as Brivo, offering the cloud service, that gets in a way more scalable way. So I mean, what Brad just said, okay, talking about internet speed, bandwidth, okay, that's a bit still important, but we as an access control provider to share access rights, that is compared to data or video screening is less. But the scalable way of doing business and helping customers is super important. So for us, that means starting with one door even, and scalable unlimited. And that's the same for Jonathan and Brivo as well. So if I may say that. So, and that, I guess, is the important part from access control.
Fantastic. I can see actually the first question that, sorry, I can't see the name, unfortunately. And Nicole is asking, how do you provide this kind of data to co-working space owners in the way that makes it easy to read, understand, and access? If you can comment on that, I think that would be great as well, guys.
Sure. Jonathan, you will go first.
Yeah, sure, Christian. That's I can go, and then Christian, you can go. So, so at Brivo, we provide. So there's a number of ways we provide the data. We have a suite of reports, and again, Christian will comment on theirs. But the key thing to recognize, and I wholeheartedly agree, as he knows, I'm sure, about the point that was made about the cloud system. So the cloud system enables you to really scale from an access control perspective, which enables you to have this data. So we provide it in, a number of reports, so you can really segment the reports however you want to do it, and get that in whatever format you want, whether it's an Excel or a PDF, and it can be delivered to you. But you can get information down to the person, down to the door, down to the site, and you can get that delivered to you in the form that you want. We also have a set of dashboards as well in certain parts of our product that you can customize to understand who's coming in and when they're coming in. So it really depends on the need for the data, whether it's a report or real time, or some sort of customized dashboard. But we deliver it, and the systems deliver it in a variety of ways. So
yeah,
similar to us. So what I maybe want to add, and that maybe also can cover that question. So managing data is important with the right UX, as Jonathan said. So can be even customized, the white label option, if that not all is integrated into Nexudus, because that is then how you can even hybrid use our system out of the box the day after commissioning, and 2 days after that gets integrated to Nexudus. So the understanding of how you manage the data, even from an out-of-the-box solution, hybrid, interconnected with Nexudus, for instance, that is a super interesting part, which again underlines the scalability and how you can make use of it. And the second part is actually a service offering at Salto, for instance, where we can, now if you then talk about the commissioning, that you get a pre-configured system fully working, handed over. So that again also relieves customers from just setting up and looking into MAC addresses, etc. That is all not needed, because that gets handed over fully pre-configured. And maybe Jonathan, you want to pitch on you, but on your solutions. But I mean, it's similar, but that is the understanding of an well-designed ecosystem for customers.
Yeah, obviously with this all two systems, when you pre-configure it, it's also very easy to connect it with Nexudus, because we do have this direct integration, which means that once you actually have done all the setup from both Brivo and Salto side, and you just connect it literally with Nexudus, and it's quite simple as well. I wonder, Brad, on your side, how this, because you mentioned a lot about this data, so you can now show off literally about those dashboards.
Absolutely. Yeah. So for us, really, when you're looking at Wi-Fi and you're looking at network, typically we're looking at that at a device level. So we see a device, but we don't know what that device is. And so with a system that, much like Iron Wi-Fi or Isify, when you start to identify the devices on a personal level, and you know that this device actually belongs to this particular individual, we get some much better data. We're not having to cross-reference. We're not just getting general data about devices. So with our solution, it's fantastic. We have, all that data comes into us. We make that accessible to the customers. That can be viewed on an individual level, to be able to see how much bandwidth. We're big on customer privacy and member privacy. So we're not allowing you guys to see what they're accessing or what they're doing on the network, but how much data they're gathering, at what times they're gathering that, if it's upload, download, what their experience is looking like. So I think that data, again, going back to your original question, when it comes to bandwidth, so many times we struggle with the community managers, the people that are operating the space. They have the difficulty of people coming to them saying, my internet's slow. And so many times it can be their device, it can be a variety of different things. And having that data to back up and know, is it really the internet that's slow, or is it something more specific to this device, I think is very important. So I really say once we get that down to an individual user level, then we start to open up a lot of doors.
Great, thank you, Brad. I just, this is actually quite interesting, obviously. I will talk about how it works from Nexus side, but like Martin, because obviously I don't know if everyone is familiar with the Iron Wi-Fi. Essentially, you can connect all sorts of providers with the system as Nexudus to actually feed the data back to Nexudus. I wonder if Iron Wi-Fi has some data warehouse or some dashboard that you can see a bit of information. To be honest, I don't know myself.
Definitely, yes. We have a console where we display all the data that we are receiving from the network access controller, which is collecting all the session information about the client devices and sending it back to us. Our customers can download this data in a raw format that they can process using some other tools, utilities, or they can use or review one of our, I think it's about 20 different reports that we have available, and these reports can be viewed like in our dashboard or downloaded again.
Fantastic, thank you. Yeah, because I wasn't actually aware, because obviously in case of Nexudus, we are gathering all of the data that you have from all of the systems. So from the door access control system, from the Wi-Fi system, and we essentially combine all of this data. So that's the benefit of having actually a management solution that integrates with all of those providers. So you can have various points of data that are in one system, plus you can dive into the extra reports of the specific provider, Salto, Brivo, Iron Wi-Fi, or the radio servers, ISOFI. So essentially, you can get all of these points, and it all can be displayed as well, combined in the additional system. I see that there are many questions following, but let's jump to the second one, which is about the building. So this is actually very important topic, because obviously you need to think ahead when you're actually setting up your space or building your location, your real estate. So what do you need to think about when you're actually building this space? What are the needs of how do you facilitate at this initial state all of those needs that you will have in the future, looking into potential needs that will arise later on? Who knew 2 years ago, when people were building their locations, that pandemic will come and you will need to change everything to contactless? So what do you need to think right now at this moment when you actually setting up your building, or when you're setting up your location, to actually facilitate current needs and potential needs of the customers in the future? Because that's an investment, right? So let's dive with Salto and Brivo. If you can start from this door access control system part, that would be great.
Jonathan, you would give it a start, or
Sure. I'm happy to start.
No, I'm happy to. So, but anyway, so I can start. So I think again, I would like to zoom out. I think always, okay, how to build a building right is a super important topic, and how to build a building new means you have always different components, right? Monica, you mentioned already. So what is the future? How to make it future-proof, as Jonathan said. So that means property development has been on the clear shift. Because if you look back, a lot of things were built and forget. And that is a harsh comment, but it was built for a certain purpose, and now it's built for being future-proof. That means that if you look at access control, you would like to have access control which can be used for multiple purposes. Maybe if you now have a lease time of 10 years, and after 10 years there is a new purpose, you would like to maybe reuse, or hopefully reuse the investment you did. So you need to think in that terms, and that then nails it down to how you can make use of access control as such, how you can think about spatial design and technology. So all the components being important of a future-proof building. Now in access control, as I said, it's how you then even refurbish a building. You need access control systems which are offline or online, but still, as you look at Salto, for instance, mainly battery operated, so that you can reduce costs by not cabling a door. So these type of components are important. If you at the other hand side can also have the additional services by taking the data out of the logs for further applications, which is, I think, also a topic of today. Now, Jonathan, you can go.
Absolutely. Of course. Thank you, Christian. I would again agree with all of that. And just to get a little more specific to what Christian was saying, from an access control perspective, so we would both, of course, agree, again, as we've stated before, electronic access control is critical to future-proof for so many reasons, which I think we'll get into a little bit more. But just thinking about things more specific past what Christian had said, Just think about, wiring, if you need to wire certain things. If you're going to use a wireless lock, like Christian said, make sure that the door type is one that's compatible. The network capabilities, obviously we have our colleagues here on the call to talk about network capabilities, but just to be sure that you've thought about all those things and all those details that you need, because they're easy to miss. You don't want to have a number of doors in there. I mean, it seems obvious, but if you have your mind set on, a Salto system or some other kind of system, whatever it is, you need to be sure that you have the compatibility and the infrastructure there in order to actually deploy it. So really just understand what that is. Again, door types, network capabilities, wiring, to be sure you have the right locks, just to be sure that you're ready to do it and to ask those type of questions so that no detail remains unaddressed.
I feel from the door access control system, that's quite crucial as well, because the investment can be quite high if you actually want to put locks on all of your doors that will work with your management system or whichever system you're using. And that's something that many operators don't think about until they actually choose the system like Nexudus. And it ends up that the system that they have chosen may not be integrated already. And from this perspective, that requires a custom integration, of course, while with Privo and Salto, that's quite quick to integrate.
Yeah, I think, to add only one or two comments is, the retrofitability is key. So comes jointly with the scalability. So if you maybe want to start with one door, what can you do in order to retrofit then the working doors as well? So that is a part which, can go seamless with Salto and our product portfolio, which can literally go on any door worldwide. But the second part is, which I always recommend to do, there are thousands of different business concepts out there. So every co-working or working place operator comes with its own business concept, with its own vision and mission, how to strengthen the relation to their customers. And this needs to be really clear, because out of these needs, you can basically filter which components are needed. Not only access control, but do you want to, for instance, have a door left open command, which maybe turns into a different application. So we should be really clear about the user experience desire of our customers or their customers, that we know what we can do. And that is part of the consultancy efforts.
Actually, I have a question to you, Christian, because Jennifer is mentioning that she's in the middle of a build out and the security systems, including Salto actually. And so they are mentioning that they require local partner for install. Is there a plan to move those systems into more DIY setup for techies like me? So this is Jennifer commenting on that.
I would say that everybody from us, and definitely if tech enabled, can install a lock. It's just not the current process of our policies, because we want to provide a good support. Yeah, right. So Salto, I hope it's a good answer for you, but Salto currently we have that trained and certified partners around the globe, and through that partner channel and through our own business units, we make sure that at the end of the day, you're also happy in 1 or 2 years from now. And I can understand the need of, I want to do it myself. I have also installed my lock myself, no doubts. But it's then at the end, you also don't have, you have to look into emergency exit rules and regulations, legal regulations. So all of that is covered by us, as it is by any other of our solution providers here in the call. So if you would like to have a Wi-Fi system installed correctly, you need someone who knows not just putting in the cable and mount it on the wall, but also all the other regulations to take care of. And that is then currently for the Salto product portfolio, no, although we have also products in our portfolio which are more do-it-yourself, but that is another product range. And if you like you or the one who has asked can definitely reach out to us to get that sorted.
That's a very good comment about the other security aspects. So it's not only installing the logs, but understanding also, yeah, how people will leave the building, how this will work, and how to make it the most secure according to the regulations. So that's a great comment, Christian. Thank you. What would you say from the Wi-Fi perspective, really? Because obviously it's a bit different aspect. You have obviously the Wi-Fi provider. Then you have some different devices that people get lost, I guess, at some point. So what is your advice when you actually are building the building or changing the infrastructure that you have?
Right. So regarding the wireless devices, what we are recommending is basically to stick with the big brands, big vendors who are very often like pioneers in deploying new technology and developing new standards. And one of the most required feature, desired feature, is cloud control. So as these offices are growing and adding more and more, let's say, spaces and more networking devices, they want to keep everything under control and have unified visibility into this. And that's where we recommend to go with the vendors who have these capabilities to provide this visibility and offer this cloud cloud management for these networking devices.
I think, Bharat, you're using some of those big brands with Isify as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I very much echo that from what Martin said. I would say when it comes to the construction as we're building out a space, there'd be two things that I would really want to be accentuate here as we're talking and kind of misconceptions is as we look forward. I talked a little bit about latency previously and how important that is. And again, as we see more, if we start to have more of a more of these web meetings and the importance of VoIP traffic and video, and that latency is going to become that much more important. So we need to really consider that and think about that. And so as we move to Wi-Fi and devices are wirelessly connected, that's great. And that's really where the future is wirelessly connected devices, but we still have a lot of devices that can support a wired connection. And what most people don't realize is that those devices, when we wire them, they'll actually operate more quickly and have lower latency, better latency. But also it kind of has a community effect. So the devices that are wirelessly connected will have a better experience as well. So I would say definitely don't give up on wiring offices. You don't need to run cable everywhere, but so often that's a question that's asked. So can't we? Everything's Wi-Fi now. Can't we just skip that? You can, but we're going to experience a reduction in quality. And the second thing would be, as we're looking forward for Wi-Fi, there's this it's very difficult really to place access points properly. We're starting to see, with Wi-Fi 6, we're seeing higher and higher frequencies. We've heard of 5G for phones, that's very high frequencies. These high frequencies give us fast speeds, what we really want, but they do that at a cost to range. So when we're wiring a building, we really want to wire and think about Wi-Fi 6 and think about these higher frequencies that are going to be prevalent. We want to make sure that we have the appropriate wiring for those access points. But there's a balance there, because if we stick in today too many access points, we can actually bring the Wi-Fi down and bring the quality down. So that's something that honestly requires quite a bit of thought and some engineering. And thankfully at Isify, we supply that to our customers. It's free in our consulting. That we'll actually place the access points and consider that just for the future, but also for current, to make sure that you have optimal performance in the space.
Yeah, that's. I feel like many people don't really understand how this works, and it's enough that sometimes just connect the current system with Nexudus. But there's so much behind it as well. So it's great to actually reach out to experts to understand how your Wi-Fi works there. Actually, I have one question that Adrian I could see answered regarding the private networks. So obviously in Nexus, you can add the VLAN ID to the platform. And Stephen is asking, is setting up a private networks the best way of securing information for larger members companies?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go ahead, Martin.
Yes, it is, but the customers need to understand that there are two different methods how to control the access to the network. usually in environments where people are bringing their own devices. These devices are not managed and do not meet like any specific standards like setup and security. So for these customers, we are offering this captive portal authentication. With this captive portal, when a user connects to the wireless network, remember, they will be redirected to some login page, and then if they have valid credentials and they have access to the network, they will be authorized. In these type of scenarios, it's not possible to deploy VLANs because basically all these users are already on the same network, and that's a limitation of basically is a standard. No, there isn't a single vendor who would provide a solution for this captive portal with different VLANs. For this type of customers that do require VLANs, we have the WPA Enterprise solution, which will basically authenticate the user and authorize them before they get connected to the network. So after they enter the correct credentials, then we pull the VLAN number from Nexudus, and we assign them the controller and send them to the right network or to the right segment.
Yeah, and Martin, if I can, I think that's what's so exciting about Isify is actually that's exactly what we do, is that we do make it possible on a captive portal to have that VLAN separation. And I think that that's something that's so important. As Martin was saying, we have, in a co-working space, we don't have control over what devices connect. And so we'd like to be able to have this high security, but we have devices that are coming in that might not meet those security standards. And that's how Isify was built from the ground up, is recognizing that problem and seeing, well, do we settle? Do we bring the entire network down to a low security level to accommodate those users? Or is there a way to bring high security and still accommodate those users? And that's what Isify does. So with our solution, we actually form a digital fingerprint of each device. We're able to associate that to a person, and then that person can be on their own VLAN, and that's actually very much automated throughout the space, whether they're wired or wirelessly connected. They get their own VLAN, and it's all automated. It's really quite simple. We do with the Nexus integration, you guys can put in the VLAN ID, but we've even taken it a step further there, where if you guys don't know what a VLAN ID is, great, you don't have to. All you need to do is give it a name, and we create that VLAN ID for you. We manage those VLANs IDs for you. So really the whole system is stupid proof, and makes it very simple for everyone to be on a VLAN.
That's a good point. Like a lot of obviously operators are the one-shop man or one-shop woman. Basically, they need to deal with everything, and it's just so hard to deal with everything yourself. So that's why we do integrate with the systems that can provide us full service as well. But if you want to have a flexibility, there are systems that provide that too. So it depends really how like tech-oriented you are. You can choose the solution that will be best for you. And then with Nexudus, obviously, it can be all integrated. I'm aware of the time, so we have like last 15 minutes. So actually, I would want to focus on the basically how you adjust your product to meet better the current situation, and how you can support your customers basically with that product, and also whether you have seen some changes, very significant changes in behavior. So whether people are using access control differently, the same with Wi-Fi, whether they actually use it differently, whether you have seen the fluctuations in data. So that's a really interesting topic, like how it has changed currently, and how did you follow the with your product? Let's start this time maybe with Wi-Fi. So let's switch it a bit around.
Martin, did you want to start?
Sure. So one of the activities that we are really focused on is deploying the new Hotspot 2 solution, which basically its goal is to solve these issues, where it's a combination with this captive portal and these wireless profiles that should be installed on these wireless clients. So we have partnered up with big brands like Cisco, Meraki, Aruba, Ruckus, and these others, and we are testing this solution, and we hope this the customers that have that have devices from these compatible vendors will be able to use these new features very, very soon.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
I would say, you know, when it comes to COVID, as I've kind of already spoken to, really what we've seen is a big uptick in these web meetings, and traffic has increased on the network specifically for these very latency dependent activities. And so really, we have found that if you have network issues or if the Wi-Fi has been planned poorly, it's really going to be shown here in the future. We're having low occupancy right now, and so it's not as prevalent. It's not being seen as badly as I think it will be. But I think as people are getting used to Zoom, even after the pandemic, I think we're going to see quite a bit more Zoom activity happening. And because of that, once we get that density, it's going to be really important that the network is designed properly to support these conversations, and you don't have the awkwardness of constantly talking over each other because of delay. So
It's a good point. We are a lot of us are at home right now, so I'm sure we are all suffering from from this specific situation. Actually, I have a question for the Wi-Fi as well. Some anonymous attendee is asking, as Wi-Fi and networks scale up, the HCP can be challenging. How do you manage it?
We don't. Basically, it's the access controller, the network access controller, that is responsible for managing the DHCP or assigning the IP addresses to the clients.
To be
And
honest, I'm not familiar with those concepts, so I hope you will help me,
Yeah.
guys.
So DHCP is just how devices get their IP address when they connect. So every device gets an IP address. Traditionally, you have DHCP. So the device connects and it says, what's my IP address? And as Martin said, the network access controller or whatever device that's supplying the DHCP will reply with, here is your IP address. As the question is saying, what becomes difficult with it is that when you have quite a few devices that are in the space, you can actually run out of IP addresses. And so you have to create a larger network, but that actually can start to slow the network down. So that's another benefit of VLANs. VLANs, in addition to the security that we've already talked about, it helps solve this problem, because with VLANs, you're creating networks within networks, and so you don't have this DHCP problem. So really the best solution is VLANs to manage the DHCP problem.
Okay, thank you. And we all know now what VLANs are as well, as people who didn't know that. Great, that's fantastic. I mean, obviously from the Wi-Fi perspective, a lot has changed. I'm quite sure there's a lot changes on the access control system as well. So I'm giving you the voice, guys.
Christian, should I start? Should I start this one? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, so the last one you start and then I go.
Okay.
No, I give you a stage.
Okay, sounds good. And Monica, this is as it relates to COVID, correct? To the current situation, how it's changed? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. How the usage of the door access controls has changed, usage of the building, and how did you manage to keep up with those changes as a solution as well?
Absolutely. So a number of things. So the demand we've seen. So the biggest one, of course, is the contactless. I think Christian may have mentioned that before. So there is a demand, at least for now, for contactless, whether it's with a mobile device or whether it's with a hand wave or things like that, as little contact as possible. The other pieces that we have, there's an awful lot of different devices that can test a potential entry, as people do think about coming back to work safely. Devices that are able to screen people in some way, whether it's a temperature check or whether it's a mass screening, things like that. We're seeing a lot of interest in integrations. Again, this goes back to the same theme that Christian and I both spoke about with, a future-proof, ideally cloud-based system that can integrate with other systems. So you have people with a certain condition, whatever it is. Okay, that person's not wearing a mask. We're not going to allow that person entry. That person has a certain change in their temperature. We're not going to allow that person entry. So we're seeing demand for integrations for systems like that, and we're able to deploy it quickly. For us specifically, again, because it is a cloud-based system, we were able to deploy very quickly some features that were available to all of our customers, a contact tracing report. So something that access control can do, both Brevo and Salto, you can understand who has been where and what they have done. So if there is some person who unfortunately, if there is an exposure event, you can say, okay, that person went into, door number 1 at 5 o'clock, and all of these other individuals were there as well. So it gives you the ability to have a report. So you're using the access control to understand who was there. We were also able to deploy something called personnel control, where we take everybody's access away and then they have to do something else to get back in. So again, the same theme, whether it's to check in with somebody or get their temperature checked or have a mask screening or something like that, just the ability to use access control in a way that gives people the ability to have a greater degree of comfort and understanding of who is going into the space and how they're using the space and that kind of thing. And then the last thing we did, we just added some questions. So mobile entry is something that we do, the ability to get in with your mobile phone. So we deployed some questions within that. Are you experiencing any symptoms? And again, the theme is the same. If somebody does, a host can be notified and or that person can have their access suspended until they can check in and understand what is going on there with the answer to the question. So things like that is what we've seen in the industry. So Christian, over to you.
Thanks. I mean, I cannot agree more. So what you have basically said, if I summarize it, as it's more or less software based or logic based. So what we have seen is exactly the same, but as we are also a manufacturer of the hardware, as you can see here, I believe, yeah. So that means that, I mean, if we would not be able to have it now, we were too late. So, I mean, the development cycles of hardware obviously are pretty long. So you cannot adapt. So that is then to us always a matter of fostering innovation and keep it doing. So you have to keep be ahead of things, and that is what we actually did. So I mean, we have seen on our devices, because all devices have mobile key built in, that the mobile key versus the physical tags were being used more. So and then, as Jonathan said, so automatic check-in has been changed from physical check-in to remote check-in even in the living scenarios, and then the controlling the people flow. So controlling the people flow as such is becoming more and more important. And I mean, then the beauty of our product, again, not specifically made for COVID, but we have also biocode technologies which then reduce the risk when using an access point. So, and that is again what you see on other applications as well. If you have a reception desk, you might also think about what can be the technology you're using that you reduce the risk of such new COVID 2.0. So that is something, and for the rest, I cannot agree more with Jonathan. It's all about going beyond access control. So we as an access control provider, we go beyond. We take the lock offline or online. If it's online, it's real time. So, and if you have real time data, that's the big data of access. As Jonathan said, you know when someone has exited a door, or maybe if someone even left a room. So you can make your applications ready with then great partners like Nexudus, where you can join the data. And I think that is what it's all about. It's community, and a community of providers and community of customers. And that then provides the holistic experience at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. We implemented a lot of contactless solution because obviously people who have access to doors, they are usually people with login details, essentially like members or people who are frequently coming to the space. But there are people who are visitors, as an example. So from our side, we also implemented a lot of like QR codes technology. So we want to reduce people touching the surfaces. And with both Salto and Brivo, you can use mobile locks within Nexudus app. So that means you literally tap with your phone and potentially the door can open. It depends what kind of door you may have as well, in that sense, I guess. I don't know if you can comment. I know with on the previous webinar we had actually a person using Salto specifically. So he was mentioning that you can he made this technology available on the parking door, the lock basically, and it opens for them. So I'm sure that it's quite possible to kind of be creative in those solutions as well.
I mean, yeah. So I mean, I think that the question is going to a fundamental development, and I can speak now for Salto, so that it's all, I mean, in the cloud-based systems, it's more like a profile-based system. So if you want to be flexible, you have a profile, and with that profile, you have tons of opportunities to be assigned to different applications, and that also means even if it's our own application. So if you want to now reuse the mobile key which you are using already for your office, and you also want to use it for your parking door, you can do it in a click from now. So, and that is something which I think is again coming back to the scalability and flexibility of a cloud-based system.
I have actually questioned myself to also Jonathan, because you were mentioning those scanners of the temperature of a mask, and that can be, I understand, integrated as well in some way. So because obviously you integrate with Nexudus and some other systems, so do you then reject access to the building regardless whether someone has this access from the system like Nexudus to enter that building? Is it somehow integrated with the solutions that you partner with, or at the moment that's something in work in progress?
No, thank you for the question. At the moment, Monica, it wouldn't be something, I'd have to think through it, but it wouldn't be something that would be integrated with Nexudus. That's certainly something that is easily changed, but it's some of these systems that have come to Brivo. And for us, it comes down to what we call suspending a user. So a user is either in the group that has permission to enter, or they're suspended. So if, it's just a pretty simple API integration such that if they don't pass whatever test it is, whether it's mass, temperature, whatever it is, they're suspended until they can be reinstated. So right now, that's from these other partners to us, but that could certainly be connected with Nexudus for sure. It's just would be, syncing up the two. So today, as we speak today, it's just to Brivo, but in terms of the way it's going, it could certainly be done via Nexudus as well. It's just literally the call would go to suspend user in Nexudus, and then Nexudus would suspend the user to Brivo. Pretty simple.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. It's an interesting topic. I don't think many flexible spaces are actually rejecting access. I would say that it's probably more for the internal usage. If you're actually having a huge office and you have your own employees and you just want to prevent them from coming, I feel like in the co-vertical, that would be a bit too much involving, this interaction can get nasty. So I feel like at the moment, many providers are basically essentially signing up some documents with their members before they come in the space. So kind of like they both agree that if you have some symptoms, you just don't come to the space. And obviously the contact tracing. So from both Wi-Fi integration and from door access control system. So you know who is already in your space, and if someone unfortunately has the COVID, then you can easily check what sort of people who was in the space, including members, visitors, essentially anyone who was in your building at that time, which is quite important. Actually, there's one really good question there. Bernard Rutzell, I saw your question. It's for Salto, so I would suggest you connecting with Christian after this call. Actually, you can connect with all of our panelists, specifically on LinkedIn. I guess all of you are using LinkedIn, and you can ask them questions there about their services. I really encourage you. But there is one question. I know that we are just on time, but this one question is really great. In tech, hacking is always a concern. How does your software identify authentic devices versus spoof devices? I know if one of you or two of you generally can comment on that.
Yeah, I would say for us, when it comes to hacking, there's, again, we're looking at, when we talk about VLANs, I know this is becoming repetitive at this point, but VLANs really locks down. When we put people in VLANs, it really limits the access that they have. And we like to talk about, firewalls. People find security in firewalls and they purchase a nice firewall. And I like to say that without VLANs, a firewall is kind of like buying the best security system in the world, but then inviting everybody into your home. It doesn't really do much good. So VLANs really separates things. But when we talk about hacking of that, there's lots of different methods that are used for hacking. And so what we want to do is eliminate the most easy hacking methods, right? And so I already kind of mentioned some of the things that we do at Isify. We do digital fingerprinting. We have that VLAN separation there. We're using encrypted traffic across all the Wi-Fi. And so those are the easy things that our software makes easy, but traditionally would actually be very, very complicated. And then just our software being unique, it makes it very difficult to hack just because it's not using a lot of the same industry standards for how it's forming that digital fingerprint that I alluded to. So it's very, very difficult to hack. And so that's some of the ways that we're trying to prevent that. So it's just like physical access. I mean, really, I'm sure the access control guys can say, at the end of the day, anyone can, if you have the right tools and you're a locksmith, you can get into any door, but the idea is to make it more and more difficult so that the common person, or it becomes more obvious that you're breaking in. And that's the same thing with network security. We just want to make it more difficult. The reality is if someone's incredibly determined and they have weeks in your space, they're probably going to be able to hack into, quite a few different systems. But we just want to make it so that that's not a concern for us.
Okay. I think the most important is that you get the system that is as secure as it can be, essentially, that you choose it wisely, and you consult with the experts. So you get the advice from the people who know specifically this part of the industry, because obviously each of you is an expert in specific field, and I encourage all of you guys to contact Christian, Jonathan, Brad, and Martin if you have any questions outside of this webinar. I think it was a very intensive session. We got a lot of questions actually, and there was activity in the chat as well. So I'm really happy about that. And if any of you want to connect with any of our providers as well, I'm also happy to connect you directly with them. And thank you so much, all of you, to sharing all of this knowledge today with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure, my pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye.